마틴센 대표님 참석해 주셨습니다. 로저 마틴센 상무참사관님을 단상으로 모시겠습니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be with you here today. I want to express my gratitude both to KEITI and to the Norwegian part, EPD Norway and ICA.no. Before I start my presentation, I would also really say congratulations to both parties that just recently, in the room beside us here, signed an MOU, a mutual recognition agreement between, EPD Norway and KEITI. This is a really good achievement. It's something to be proud of, I think. Okay, I will now give a presentation, and I will focus on opportunities for cooperation between Korea and Norway, especially seen in the light of future-oriented industries, meaning low-carbon industries, and likewise. First, you have probably seen the presentation material already, so this is not a big surprise for you. But what do you connect with Norway? Probably this you have seen before and eaten quite a lot of, I think. What about this? Mackerel. This is already a mackerel season soon, isn't it? I know, and how you grill your mackerel in Korea is really fabulous. This is a familiar face, probably. What is it? Yes, Viking. And this? Munch. Do you recognize this cartoon picture? This is also from Norway. And of course, the beautiful landscape and scenery. And what is this? Yes. But maybe the most famous from Norway right now, more than Northern Lights, is this person. Okay. Okay, a little bit about our bilateral relations. So this is our two countries, different scales though, but the area of Korea is a little bit less than 1/3 of the area of Norway. At the same time, in Korea, you're almost 52 million people, while in Norway, 5.5. So of course the population density is quite different, isn't it? But what is really striking us is the long coast of Norway actually being the second longest in the world, and the fact that Korea is surrounded by the sea. A little bit about, the collaboration we have had in more than 60 years, and we call it the blue collaboration, actually. So from being poor, both nations has really become among the world's most prominent and prosperous countries. That is really a big achievement. And the blue ocean has been vital for both countries. We are today highly integrated economists, and we are cooperating a lot of different fields. I will also mention, one major achievement, or what should I say it, a milestone, was the Nordmarch. That is by many recognized as a root of our friendship. In fact, Norway sent a field hospital to Korea in 1951 to assist the UN forces. A total of 623 Norwegians served at Nordmarch, and a stunning number of 90,000 persons were treated in this hospital. We also have a lot of shared values and interests. And among those are, of course, that we are cooperating for peace, human rights, and international development. Okay, this is a little about the trade. So if you see here what we export from Norway and what we import from Korea, you will see that oil and gas is, the most important goods that we have been exporting to Korea lately. South Korea is the second biggest market for Norway in Asia, bigger than Japan, for instance, only surpassed by China. And what do we import from Korea? Of course, Kia, Hyundai, cars, vehicles, and of course, medicine and pharma and so on. This is actually depicting something which is very popular both in Norway and Korea and globally. It's a king crab. These are some comparisons. Different sources, there might be different kind of numbers depending on which source and you are using, but at least it gives a picture. So when it comes to economy, the size of the economy is really big in Korea, number 13 globally, Norway number 26. Trading power, 9 Korea, 35 in Norway, and so on and so forth. When it comes to education, both countries are quite prominent, but of course when it comes to education system, Korea is surpassing Norway by far, second best in the world. When it comes to innovation, Korea is also ahead of Norway, being on the 6th place. But when it comes to sustainability, Norway scores better. Also when it comes to environmental performance index. So also a striking difference is the ratio of renewable energy. In Norway, we are blessed with hydropower, almost 100% self-sufficient. Korea, only 6.6% as per today. But what I read out of this is that we have some common things and we are also complementary. So this is the basis actually of cooperation. Okay, developments. I will not run this film. Just a second. These are the key industries for Norwegian companies. It is all about green and future-oriented industries. And the government is making emphasis on supporting the development of those industries because many of them are maturing as we speak. Green energy like offshore wind, hydrogen, ammonia, green maritime, battery, carbon capture. And as you know, many of you know, all of those industries are somehow interrelated. Other industries also of importance. For instance, under bioeconomy, you will also find seafood. Norway has a long experience from offshore industry, oil and gas especially. And this is something we also use in the new industries, especially when it comes to offshore wind. As I showed you, we have an abundant supply of renewable energy. And that's why we are in the forefront also of developing this. So we run on renewable energy, and we'll do that also tomorrow. So if you see for the future, as other countries, including Korea, Norway will need more energy. We can compensate a little bit by hydropower, but in addition, in the energy mix, we will add on with especially offshore wind. We have the highest density of electrical vehicles in the world. 90% of all new vehicles in Norway last year were emission-free, EVs. And this is possible only if you have a stable grid. So future is electric. As mentioned, we have the experience from oil and gas. We will use this experience further, refine it also for offshore wind, for instance. So Norway also is an attractive place for green and energy-intensive industries like battery, for instance, and so on. We have the green power. We have relevant industries in Norway already that can support the new industrial initiatives. We have skill clusters. We have a reliable framework, very reliable. And we also have, distant to the markets that is, possible. Electrical power. There has been some turmoil, during COVID and due to the Russia's aggressive war in Ukraine. But now this is, the price of electricity in Norway. You see, quite competitive. Compared with other countries, Norway is also a part of the, this European economic area with European Union. And in practice, it means that Norway is included in the 4 freedoms of EU, meaning free movement of goods, capital, persons, and services. Battery, a little bit about battery. I told you about EVs already in Norway. By 2025, 2 years ahead, all new cars will be emission-free in Norway, new bought cars. And we have a goal of reducing the emissions by 40% within 2030. And this year, actually, we are aiming at the first commercial route, domestic flight in Norway, which will be emission-free, electric. This is an EV adoption rate. This is Norway, 86%. And then you have Sweden on 45%. That is neighboring country, but a striking difference. Don't you agree? And also, when it comes to the maritime sector, we are spearheading this. In Norway, only the car ferries, I think there are today over 80 car ferries in Norway that are emission-free. In addition, we have smaller vessels as well. We also have maritime battery producers in Norway, including Corvus and Siemens. And this is the battery value chain, where you can see they compare the countries. Norway is number 5 and Korea is number 6 in total. However, Norway is best on ESG, while Korea is very, very good at manufacturing. Only after China. So there is also a ground for cooperation. These are the Norwegian companies within the battery supply chain. Cell production, we have 5 ones, module and packs, and recycling also. Not last but not least, very, very important for the future. We're talking about LCAs. I mean, come on, this is really to the spot. Okay, a little bit about offshore wind. So, as I told you, this is a key for a sustainable energy mix for a lot of countries, also in Norway. This is expected annual growth, and it will be stunning 20% yearly until 2040. Norway is here, Korea also. I will come back to that. Norway's ambitions, 30 gigawatt by 2040. You will have, I will show you afterwards, even more plants than Norway. And the potential in Norway is also enormous. 338 gigawatt, according to an analysis. These are some of the projects in Norway. I don't want to spend much time on it. There were some tenders issued newly, and the deadline is approaching soon. Quite substantial projects. Capacity 225 and 3 gigawatt. This is also a MET called MET Center. This is a world-leading marine energy test center for floating wind. So you have several different kinds of technologies that are tested, piloted. Yeah. Hywind Scotland, first offshore wind farm, Equinor from Norway, involved in this. This is Hywind Tampen, also the world's largest offshore wind farm. Thank you. Attractiveness. Look at Korea. Very attractive. No, UK number 1, Norway number 2, but Korea number 3. And look at the supply chain. Quite high, and regulatory also not bad. So really, really big potential for the future. And this is the energy mix in Korea. And you see, when it comes to energy consumption, it's not a surprise. Your industry is using a lot of energy. You see Korea, and down there also Norway, and a little bit lower. But you know, the difference from Norway is that you are dependent on import of energy. So that is something Korea will do something with for the near future. And this is the energy mix in Korea, going from 218 to 30 to 36. And you can see that the renewables will grow from 6.2 to more than 30%, which is really, really astonishing. This is offshore wind. And you see 14 giga offshore wind by 2030. Huge plans in Korea. Okay, a little bit about hydrogen. So these are the global trends. And as for offshore wind, it is increasing in all aspects, both for hydrogen, ammonia, and the need for CCUS. So this is Norway's contribution to the hydrogen economy. Hydrogen technology, maritime use, export of hydrogen, and industrial use. I don't have time to go to the details, okay? I'm sorry. I will rush on. I will jump off over this and over this. I want to mention this. Yara is one of the biggest fertilizer and ammonia producers in the world. So they are also building up, ramping up with bunkering network. They also are doing a lot of producing clean ammonia and hydrogen, and to electrify this for the future. And in Scandinavia, they aim at a network of bunkering stations by 2024. This is another project. This is blue ammonia from natural gas, which we have a lot of in Norway, with carbon capture and storage. So what we do, we use our oil wells and gas wells and inject the carbon inside. This is another project, green hydrogen. This slide is depicting some of the most prominent Norwegian companies involved in those segments. You have Nel with electrolyzers, Hexagon with storage. They are also operating in Korea, actually. Uma Composites, and this is deep purple, when you have green hydrogen offshore storage energy system. Converting from offshore wind to hydrogen, and then afterwards, from hydrogen to electricity by demand. Korea. These are the targets of the hydrogen economy in Korea. And you see the present, and then compare it with 2030, 2050, you see huge increase in supply and need. So when it comes to green hydrogen, Korea will develop efficiency improvement techniques for water electrolysis and so on. And you have to import a lot from overseas. And this is expansion of hydrogen mobility in Korea, where you will see fuel cell systems for different applications, vehicles, Then you have trucks, trams, and so on. And then further on, vessels, aviation, etc. So hydrogen is becoming a major energy carrier also in Korea. This is the industrial use of hydrogen and ammonia for the future. Also ramping up significantly. I also want to tell you that in Norway we have a test center for CCS. This is the world's largest open access test center in the world. Okay? Yeah, these are the projects. I don't want to go into details. But this is interesting. This is about Korea again. And you see that South Korea now is establishing targeted agreements with several countries like Australia, Malaysia. And why, you ask? Yes, it is the carbon part of the value chain. You don't have kind of space to store the carbon. So you make deals with other countries that have, for instance, oil wells and so on, and they inject those into those wells. Green shipping. This is the ambition of Norway, 50% reduction within 2030. This is a quite aggressive target. What I also want to emphasize is this, when it comes to ferries, for instance, it would not be possible without public-private partnership, where they use public tenders to propel innovations. And that is why we have the highest density of emission-free car vessels in the world, car ferries. More than 80 as per today. And now we are also getting hydrogen ferries on water. We also have a very competent and supply chain for maritime sector. This is just depicting the first battery electric car ferry, Ampere, from 2016, I think it was. This is an electric sightseeing vessel going into one of the World Heritage Fjords. And you know, World Heritage Fjords from 2026, it will not be possible to go inside the fjord if it's not emission-free vessel. And I would urge you, if you go to Norway, you should, it's beautiful, as Korea, you should try one of these, because it's a very nice experience. You are on this vessel. You hear anything, you don't hear anything. No engine, nowhere, nothing. It's very interesting. This is the first electric fast ferry for passengers. We also are aiming at zero-emission vessels, also for the industry application, for instance here, offshore wind. This is the world's largest battery hybrid ferry, also equipped in Norway. This is another hydrogen ferry that will operate in the north of Norway. And here are other examples depicted where we have hydrogen ferry, liquefied hydrogen powered base-to-base vessel. Here we have this ammonia fuel cell for the supply vessel. We have also Corvus Energy manufacturing energy storage systems. And this is also another example ongoing. This is ammonia-powered bulk vessel. So you see, starting from small vessels, battery electric, going further, bigger vessels, bigger distances. Electrical is not possible to cover long distances. So then you have to apply other sources of energy. But it's on the way. Same here, fishing vessels. Some of them go quite far, go to almost, the Barents Sea and so on. So this is also a field of application that is interesting. This is something else. This is Yara Birkeland, autonomous ship for cargo. This is really, really interesting. This is another one operated by one of the biggest suppliers of groceries in Norway, commuting across the Oslo fjord with goods from one warehouse to another, electrical vehicles to the port and from the port, and this is a battery electric autonomous. This is now an autonomous passenger ferry invented in Trondheim, my hometown, very proud, operating in Stockholm. And this is another one, Hike operating and will operate during Olympic Games in Paris in 2024. They have been chosen to participate. Korea. As I said, you are the second biggest shipping nation in the world. And you have 38.5% of the global market at this last year, with a focus, of course, on big container vessels and LNG carriers. And HHI, Hindi is the biggest player, of course. And you know, what is interesting here is, even though it is conventional ships, they are ready-made for new energy carriers. Very important. That is for the future. And also you have a government that is supporting the industry. This is just some details about that. I won't focus much on this. Also, green ship initiatives in Korea. So we had a lot in common. We have strongholds, we have weaknesses, but together, I think we are quite complementary. And this is also the progress of some of the maritime hydrogen vessel initiatives in Korea. Some are similar to what we are doing in Norway. Okay, seafood. So this is export of seafood from Norway. This is really something, and Korea is the 15th biggest market. So Korea is, you know, very important for Norway. We have an increase of value last year, and this year also until July, and the salmon, especially when it comes to value. Volumes have gone down because the prices on especially salmon are very high. Mackerel, on the contrary, has gone a little bit down, both in value and volume. And the same for crabs, king crabs, increased value, and also the volume has increased significantly. So this is the export we have to Korea. So it's the volume, you see, and the value, and the developments lately. And if you see here, it's, you know, the value is almost 4.5 billion Norwegian kroner. So this is the value, and then you see the different species that are exported. Of course, salmon is the main exported species. However, we see new species coming in. I mentioned mackerel, king crab, but also others are coming. Because nobody eats that much seafood and fish like Koreans. I'm amazed, actually. Well done. I mean, this is the future. Because to produce fish or seafood, it has a much less footprint, environmental footprint than, for instance, meat. We need to eat less meat and more seafood. That is very important for our globe. Just a few words about aquaculture. I'm coming to the end now. You're probably very tired already. You know, aquaculture, as I said, we need to eat more fish. And only 3% of the world's aquaculture is salmon. And the technologies we have developed during 50 years in Norway could also be applied for other species. But there's one challenge that many countries face, also South Korea. Where should we produce the fish and seafood? And this is shocking. Only 2% of the calories come from aquatic production. We need to raise this This is, I mean, what we need in the future. We need more energy. We need more transportation. We need more food because we are becoming much more people on the planet. So this is really something we should look into. Yeah, I mentioned population growth. Health, of course, very important, and you care about for health in Korea, I know. Climate change, less footprint and so on, very important. Aging population. Yeah, we need to exploit the resources in a good manner. And this is part of the solution. Fish farming. This is the value chain, starting from, this is from cradle to grave, but maybe we should see it in a circular sense also. So maybe we could say cradle to cradle, because this will go around, you know. So this management, research, breeding, fish health, feed, production, processing, distribution, market, customer. But if you also combine this, it's something called multi-trophic aquaculture, where you combine different species, where, for instance, one species can make use of the offals from another, for instance, then you can get some circular solutions. And this is just a bit of what Norwegian suppliers can do, you know. In Norway, we are also developing a lot of new technologies for fish farming. This is ocean-based, sea-based, but of course we also have land-based, and that is most important for Korea due to the lack of space. This is also about sustainable offshore fish farming. This is just a concept, you know. Korea, what is happening in Korea? There's a lot of interest in Korea for aquaculture. The government is spending a lot of investments in developing the industry, but it's mostly focused on land-based solutions. Norwegian companies are also working together with Korean partners, because in Norway we also are specialists on land-based, especially this called recirculatory aquaculture systems. That means that we reuse, recycle and clean and reuse the water. Very important when it comes to land-based aquaculture. Otherwise, it is difficult to do it. Okay, I've run through this presentation. Maybe I have a place in Guinness Book of Records now, but thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present and give you some ideas about where we could cooperate together. Korea, Norway. Thank you very much.
하콘 하우안 대표님께서 발표가 있겠습니다.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I will just say thank you for the opportunity to participate with you here today and to keep my speech for you. And thank you for KEITI for hosting and organizing this event. I'm starting with this picture. It happened 6 years ago here in Seoul, also organized by KEITI, and I had the honor to keep a speech in Seoul in an event that really is a starting point for where we are today. Maybe you even recognize some of the persons from KEITI on the picture. I hope so. It's a very important day. Today we have signed this MOU agreement, which will reach an MRA, mutual recognition agreement, in a quite short time. We discovered during our pre-conversations that this is the first MRA agreement for KEITI outside Korea. And this is actually the first MRA agreement for EPD in Norway outside Europe. In this way means that we connect the two countries, and we will collaborate, and we will make things, let's say, easier for companies, for stakeholders, even for legislation, while doing this mutual recognition agreement, sharing experiences, sharing PCRs, sharing everything that we can share. So this is, for me, and I hope for KEITI, I know for KEITI, it's a very, very important milestone. This agreement will also not only give, let's say, access to or give possibility for the Norwegian market, but definitely for the whole of Europe, because we are inside the European Economic Area and we comply with all rules and regulations, even documentations for environmental product declarations or other kind of environmental documentation. So when it's first approved and confirmed, it's basically valid throughout the European Union. Again. So why is this so important? And how can the Korean industry benefit from this? And I think, as the representative from the embassy started with, there's a lot of business opportunities, ongoing business opportunities, but also future business opportunities between the two countries. And everything we do together, at least I'm convinced, has to have sustainability as a core ingredient in everything we do. If you cannot do your products, your solutions, your processes, if you don't have any kind of sustainability around it, documented or as part of your strategy, I don't think you will succeed, or we will succeed. So sustainability and documentation will be and is a key ingredient into this. I will show a few examples how we can cultivate this kind of relationship. I will also show that we, even if we sign the agreement today, we are running a little bit faster because we even have a pilot already in place with LG Electronics, which I think is a fantastic news. And I will also mention briefly, which I think is very important, we have a cooperation with IGSC, which is a local partner here in Seoul. And I think that is also a key success criteria for doing this kind of cooperation. Okay, so this was briefly mentioned earlier, but I think this is very, very important. I'm talking about the global and local drivers for the environmental documentation and also for sustainability. I will jump to this success with the electrical ferries and boats in Norway. A key component of that success was green public procurement. Using public money, public tenders as a purchasing power to achieve environmental goals. I'm 100% sure without the tender description, the tender criteria for zero emission or for whatever kind of criteria, there will not be any kind of vessel built in Norway as it is today. So we need to use many times green public procurement, tender procurement, purchasing procurement to drive green innovations. I think that is fundamental. And that is what we see from the European point of view. There is a public project procurement for a circular economy. This one is implemented now by all European countries. And you will see it in all types of public tenders in all sectors, that the environmental factor has a decisive criteria for decision making. The European countries are not running in the same speed, so there are differences, but already now you will see that public procurement requires environmental documentation, it requires new green innovations, and if you cannot comply or if you cannot deliver, you are not able to compete. Taxonomy, it was mentioned by my predecessor. I think that is a European reporting system, but you need to report according to US taxonomy, and sustainability and environmental product declarations, or put it another way, let's say your footprint, your CO2 emission footprint is very important into this. Digital product passport. It will be gradually implemented by the European Union, and it's actually, it's a digital and it's a passport for each and one of the products sold in Europe, and it will include LCA and verified trustworthy environmental documentation. That will be an integrated part of the digital product passport. And the main method around it will be LCA, and it will be extremely focused on the circular economy. I think the textile business will be the first that will implement this. They have come quite far. And you will see that there's already the framework is in place. And in the end of the day, it means that you need a digital product passport to sell your product in Europe. If you don't have a digital product passport according to the standards, you will not be able to sell your products. The last one I will mention is the CPR, Construction Product Regulations. The construction sector represents more or less 40% of total emissions in Europe. And this is now under development. It will be voted for in the European Union, I believe, in April, May next year. And that will be not, let's say, it will not be a voluntary, it will be mandatory, and it will be a part of the European legislation. That means, in principle, that all products represented by the construction products need to have something called CPR acquis. And within the CPR acquis, you will have EPDs, you will have all the indicators, you will have the circularity, and it has to be verified, and it has to be approved by what they call a notified body. Normally, that will be an EPD program operator. So that also includes the businesses within Europe, but also all companies or businesses that would like to sell their products in Europe, they need to have this documentation in place in order to sell your product. So for the Korean companies within the construction sector, CPR acquis will be mandatory. It will be gradually implemented, but it will be, and it will be part of legislation, and you need to have it. And I think that's why this agreement with KEITI is so important, because we can make a cooperation in order to help and facilitate companies to obtain this certification. The same thing will be developed for electronics, for chemistry, all sectors, and the battery, you mentioned it earlier, is already in place, the battery directive within the circular economy. So this is coming faster and faster, and it's just to be prepared. And again, sustainability and the environment and LCA method and EPD documentation will be a fundament either way of the methods or the sectors. And it's a little bit about, again, I have this graph here that all countries, they are committed to reduce their CO2 emissions by X number of percentage to a scale. And this is basic from Korea. I think it's 50%. Norway has the same thing. And of course, if you are going to reach this target, and if you are sitting as the government in a country, you need to put effort behind it. And that's why they use this kind of green public procurement, incentives, these procedures as digital product passport and CPR, etc., etc. The result of this is also that companies will start to compete on environmental performances. Because when you use these kind of instruments and you have the numbers for the global warming potential for a product, for example, then you can actually choose the product with the lowest carbon emission versus the product with a higher carbon emission. And that will sometimes and often be more important than the price. So now companies will start to compete on different dimensions. They will still compete on price and quality and design, of course, but the environmental part will be a key competitive factor in the future. So you will definitely change the game a little bit to compete on the environment. And we see this already. I will just mention a couple of examples later on. Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 reporting, it has already been mentioned, so I can just skip that one. And we also see a very clear trend I call financial drivers, is that financial institutions now, it might be banks, it might be investors, they will not invest or they will not grant financial help for businesses that are not sustainable. Or if they do so, you will have to pay a higher price. So even now, the financial institutions, because they also have sustainable goals, so they are now giving better conditions for companies or products that can be proven to be sustainable versus products that are not, or companies that are not. We already have a few examples where big Norwegian banks, they have said no to projects because it's not sustainable. Running away for business because it's not sustainable. This is money, so this is important. Unfortunately, I think we are not the one world yet. It was also mentioned earlier, and I think that was a good thing. We see now a small tendency that the world is going from to be a little bit regionalized. We have the United States and North America with what they call IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, putting billions of dollars into the green innovations, into the green economy, and into the green shift in the US. It was mentioned California with the legislation is already in place. The European Union is facing this with similar kind of packages, similar kind of instruments to not only to compete with the Americans, but also to be even more attractive within Europe. And I'm quite sure that the same thing is happening within Southeast Asia. But hopefully, and I think that from the producer's point of view and from the environmental point of view, the LCA methodology will always be in the bottom. So it will be based on international standards, which makes it easier to comply with regulations if it's in California, if it's in Norway, Europe, or Korea, or any other countries. But this is what the trend that we see right now. 3 big blocks competing a little bit on environmental conditions and environmental targets, and also on environmental legislation. I just mentioned this one. I'm not so into details about the Inflation Reduction Act, but at least I know that it has already attracted companies from Europe to invest in green development and green technology in the US and not in Europe due to the package of IRA. And we will see probably some kind of competition between the regions in order to be attractive and to attract new green businesses. We see it already, the battery industry, for example. I think there are a lot of countries that are making attracting offers to give the battery producers good conditions where they would like to locate their fabrics, for example. So, why is the EPD so important in a sustainable strategy? Well, I believe that all companies now, they need to have some kind of sustainable strategy. They need to have some kind of targets. And you see it in the annual reports, and you see it, they have often own sustainable reports. So this is important, and especially to reach some of these goals put out from the United Nations. And also to reach the goals for a more circular economy. And there's a huge difference. We'll just make an example. We say that, like in Norway, we like to say that we are very good in many things. But with the circularity, we have around 5% circularity in Norway. In Holland, they have 15%. So there is a huge difference even between countries in Europe about the percentage of circularity. And this is not because I don't think the Dutch are more clever than us, but basically it's due to legislation. They're using legislation as a powerful tool to drive the circular economy. And the Dutch have been extremely clever in this. I think we in Norway we will follow up. But at the end of the day, it will be a European regulation regarding circularity. So, again, why is EPD so important? And I always use this metaphor. Because if I would like to lose some weight, I feel a little bit overweight. I can go to the mirror and I can look at the mirror and say, "Oi, this is not good." And I can say, I would like to lose 4 kilos. But if I don't have the weight, I don't know where I am. I don't know how many kilos I have lost, and I don't know if I've reached my target. It's exactly the same thing with the EPDs. If a country would like to reduce the CO2 emissions by 50%, you need to know where is the country. How do the country know that they have reached the goal in 2030 or 2045 without using instruments? And that's why the EPD as a third-party verified standardized documentation is crucial to measure actually how are we doing, when have we reached our target, do we reach our target? So in that way, we as program operators and you as LCA practitioners or specialists, we can contribute this because we can give a very powerful tool that will help businesses, industries, even countries to measure and reach their targets. But it can even be more. We see now that there are, in the green public procurement, for example, we see now that sustainable criteria are included into the strategies. This can be CO2 emissions, it can be life expectancy, it can be circularity. I mean the circularity, how do you handle, how do you document your circularity? It can be energy consumption, zero carbon construction sites, it can be transport, dangerous substances, and other cases. So already now we see that, these criteria and more is an integrated part of a sustainable strategy, and you can use the EPDs to measure this, and not only to measure, but also put targets on this. I have a good example. I use a Norwegian example, but it could be from anywhere, or even also from California, maybe from Korea. The Norwegian Public Road Administration, they say, if you don't have the required environmental documentation, EPD, you are not qualified to compete. Think about that. As a producer of construction materials in Norway, you are not allowed to compete if you don't have the required documentation. It's like if you're playing in a football team and you're not allowed to go to the pitch because you don't have the right things, because you haven't prepared enough. That's the fact right now. You're not allowed to compete. What also the Norwegian public road authorities do, and they put this into the public procurement, is they say they put some kind of threshold for CO2 emissions. Meaning, I can use an example that I remember. For about 1,000 kilos of asphalt, they assume it's around normally 50 kilos CO2 emissions. That is the average. The public authorities, they say, okay, but we will give the tenders to the producers that can prove that they are at 40 kilos CO2 emission per 1,000 kilos or lower. So even if you have the documentation in place, even if you claim that you are sustainable, they will reward contracts based on the CO2 emission. And why do they do that? It's very easy, because the Norwegian public road authorities, they have promised the state that they will reduce their CO2 emission by 2030 with 50%. And how can they do that unless they force their vendors to do the same thing? And they are using EPDs, and they are using CO2 emissions as a crystal clear criteria for rewarding tenders. So the result is that they have now reduced this average CO2 emission from 50 kilos to below 30. And they say very clearly, we cannot have done this without using EPDs as a powerful tool, without measuring it, and without putting it into criteria for green public tenders. So it's very, very, very important to have this documentation in place, and we see now many, many examples that it's been used, and it's a very, very powerful tool. And it's not even a powerful tool, it's a powerful sales tool, because you can use environmental documentation as a sales arguments. Think about that. You can use the environment and the results in the documentation that you have as sales arguments. This is something new. But we see now that more and more salespeople, they are confronting it, do you have environmental documentation? Oh no, I don't have. Okay, come back tomorrow when you have the documentation. So it's both a sales argument and a sales tool, but it's also a decision-making criteria. This is something new, it's happening, and it's happening fast. This is the same, we do the same thing as KEITI, so I don't need to mention this. So I will just say that EPD Norway and myself, we are a member of what's called the Eco Platform. I'm currently the president of Eco Platform. Eco Platform is an umbrella organization originally for all EPD program operators in Europe. Now it has expanded. Now we are attracting members from the whole value chain, from industry, from LCA practitioners, from software companies, and even EPD program operators outside Europe. I think the last one that entered our membership was a Chinese EPD program operator and also a Japanese EPD program operator. And of course, they are doing this for some of the same reasons that we are cooperating with KEITI. There's so much things happening on the global scene, and we need to be sure that we can provide the documentation, the services that the companies in our country needs and is required to enter different regions of the world. Okay, again, this MRA agreement that we have just signed the MOU today will be extremely important. EPD publication, we can publish EPDs both ways, mutual recognized, mutual accepted. Important. It will save time and it will save cost for the companies, and it will also be more transparent. We can do dual EPD registration both ways, if you like to do so. We will have PCR cooperation and recognition. Important. Why should every EPD program operator develop their own PCRs? Then you will have thousands of PCRs. Why not cooperate in the PCR development? So we don't have a lot of PCRs that are equal or overlapping. Doesn't make sense. KEITI will, and KEITI's customers will have access to Eco Platform and Eco Portal. Eco Portal is the digital platform for all approved and verified EPDs in Europe. It will be also outside Europe. And we should not neglect the importance of the digital environmental information, because that one is more and more used. And the Eco Portal and the digital EPDs will be an integrated part of our cooperation. Very important. We will be sharing knowledge and experiences, of course. We will have frequently updating meetings. Maybe I cannot go to Korea every month, but at least we will have frequently meetings. We will cooperate in digital product passport. We can cooperate in the CPR keys, digitalization and optimization, approved environmental documentation for access to the European market, and high efficiency. With that mean we will save time and we will save cost for ourselves, but also for our customers. There are a lot, and probably more benefits, but there are a lot of benefits for this mutual recognition agreement. But we have already started. EPD Norway, together with the assistance from the IGSC, we have already published and approved a verified EPD for LG Electronics. Following the correct standards, it's valid and applicable at least for throughout Europe. It's there. It's a proven sign that this is working, and as a proven thing that we can scale this up to have more EPDs, of course. And actually, since I made this presentation, we have had a few more, but I will use this as an example in the electronic business. So we have already together, we have made this kind of product carbon footprint verification statement based on a published EPD, and this statement is used for market access. So this is the first proof that the cooperation is working. It gives results, and this is something that we can build on. I will just at the end mention our cooperation with IGSC. They are here today, and this is very important because we also need local partners to achieve what we achieve, to have customer contact. So we have a partnership now with IGSC for developing EPDs, for third-party verification, for publishing of EPDs, also for automation and digitalization. We can publish this kind of carbon footprint verification statements. And also IGSC will be a certified body for verification between our two organizations. And this is extremely important, local partners, local knowledge. And this together with the MRA, with KEITI, I think this is an extremely strong, let's say, relationships that will give a lot of added value for customers or producers, both in Norway and in Korea. We have already developed cooperationship by having a 1 week extensive training in Norway in May or June this year. 10 LCA practitioners or LCA persons, they were in Norway giving extensive education for EPD development and third-party verification. These are some Korean news based on this cooperation. And as we speak, in another place here in Seoul, we have a new 1 week intensive training with 30 persons from Korea, different Korean companies, going through the same training in order to be EPD developers and third-party verifiers. So it's already fruitful, the cooperation. And as you all know, we lack LCA competence in the world, not even in Korea, also, but in the whole world. So this type of cooperation also is a cooperation for competence sharing and competence building, which I think is extremely important. And this is the happy group in Oslo in June. Maybe you will see some familiar faces in here also. It's very good. And it's very good for the last reason that I'll mention. It's very good because we build personal relations. Business and EPDs, LCA is also funded on personal relations. And this is a fantastic way to build good personal relations. We become friends, and then we become friends, we trust each other, and we can do great things together. So that was my speech to you. I'm sharing my knowledge with you, and I will be happy to further on to collaborate, to answer. So thank you for your attention. Thank you.
LCA&O의 트론드 에드바드센 대표님의 발표가 있겠습니다.
Hello everybody, and thank you so much for the hospitality and that you have shown us here in Korea. It's my first time, and I'm really, really sure I want to come back here. So thank you so much for that. First of all, LCA.no is a software company, even if it's called LCA, but we are cooperating with a lot of LCA experts, also have our own LCA experts, but we don't want to be, let's say, collecting everything into our group. We want to produce a SaaS, software as a service system, so we can create this documentation that are needed in a really high speed. And it should be good quality, verified, and be able to use right away. So this is our let's say, mission. It is to create to reduce the time that is being used to create this documentation. We have a history of quite some years. Some of our employees have been working with this for more than 30, maybe 35 years. We are depending on all the standards for LCA. So LCA as a standard format is the foundation of all what we do. We have customers in maybe three parts of the world. So it is in Europe, it is in the US, it is in Asia that we have customers. We have a timeline that goes all the way back to 2005. Even if you see here that the company was established in 2016, I was the managing director or CEO in a research company in Norway that was specialized in using LCA method to create documentation and also to use it in other purposes, but all for the environmental impact and show the results. And for those 9 years I was the CEO there, we started the development to try to get as much as we could out of the research results. And those who's working with the LCA knows that you have to take this the ground data from somewhere. You have to take it from EcoInvent or Gabi, and you have to use it. You have to perform LCAs, and you have to, from there, create EPDs. So it's quite a long process. And what we did was that we actually took all part that was in that process that was manually based. And in that research company, we split it up so that we could verify parts of the system, so the system itself could be verified to ease up the whole process. And it took some years. The first web-based generator was launched in 2013. What is more important with this timeline is what is happening in 2019 and up, because then we see a tremendous growth in the EPD and the demand for EPDs. And it was just for all our customers to actually be able to, like Hauan was saying, to be able to participate in tenders, to actually sell the products, you needed to have this documentation. But it has been moving on from there. We see that from 2022, last year, there was more need of calculating the EPDs. So now it is not only a document, it is not only a certificate, it's actually being calculated on the tender to see who is performing the best. We are divided into three divisions. We have the programming part, which are really technical. They are doing the programming as a SaaS product, cooperating with Microsoft, having everything in the cloud secured. And we also develop some additional systems to help the customers that are producing environmental documentation to help them improve. So we have a project system, we have an analyzing part of system, we actually have a route planning system to create the best transport to put into the EPDs in the most easy way. So we can calculate that. And we also have a really strong API integration, so we can connect to anyone that needs to use this. But we have a operation which also contains the LCA specialist. But every time we go out in a new market, we search for partners like IGSC that we have a partnership with now that have the LCA competence, so we can use that because there is a lack of this expertise in the world. The demand for the expertise is much higher than how many that actually can do that. That's why this cooperation that we're starting now is so important, both that we can have that expertise, but also that we do it the same way. We also have a strong R&D department because we are a software house and we need to actually take advantage of the possibilities that these kind of systems give us. So we are investigating IE solutions to try to get the system to be more and more self-learning and actually gives feedback to our customers if they are doing something wrong or not. So the results that is coming out to be verified is so close to that as possible. We're talking about the LCA, the basic of ISO 14040 and 44. That is our base. And what is coming out of that, it is a lot of things. So since the LCA is the approved method in environmental documentation now, the output for us is more to be chosen. So even if you are talking about EPDs here, since the LCA is the method for a lot of documentation needs, these LCA experts that create the data sets that are coming into the system, those data sets can be used for a lot of purposes. What we call the EPD is what I call the executive summary of all the LCAs that needs to be run to the system. So what we do is that when the LCA data sets is coming in and we are creating an EPD, or some other documentation, the users are just keying in all the input data they normally do for their production. So they are keying in what they're using for raw material, and behind that raw material, it is always a LCA study or another EPD for the raw material supplier. And in that way, we are creating a really fast and efficient way so you can both create documentation, but you can also try to improve yourself, because the analyzing part gives you the opportunity to work in your own organization. So the sustainability itself and the report you are doing for sustainability, it's much easier to take out of the system and use for ESG reporting. I will come a little bit back to that. This is really technical, but I just want you to remember that until we come to a later slide, when we are going to map this up to the digital product passport and eco design. Because we have the modules A, modules B, modules C and D in the system with all the indicators underneath. So don't pay any much attention to it if you are not familiar to this. It is just to see how this is mapped to all this kind of documentation needs that is there. And also remember that everything is digital. We are printing out the PDF, but all the things should be and are digital in the system. That is the reason why we need it digital, because we are not a kind of software that wants to go, let's say, up and develop a lot of difficult system to calculate everything in different sectors. We want to produce verified documentation. That is what we want to do. We don't want to calculate it in a horizontal way, but we need to actually get this in use through the value chain. So we want EPDs for all the raw material. Of course, the world is not like that now, but we want it to be in the future. When it's not an EPD for a raw material into our customer, we need to perform an LCA to create a data set instead of that EPD. So that's why we also have let the customer actually onboard their suppliers. We are saying to them, if they don't have an EPD, you can onboard them in your own solution for creating EPDs, so you can get your supplier up and running on the same way. Instead of performing an LCA then on just the data sets that needs to be updated, you actually are putting all the LCA for that data set into the generator, and you're producing the EPD for the supplier. When that supplier finds out that this is really a nice thing, he can say to his customer that, I want to do this not only to you, I want to do this to all of my customers. Then the customer can offboard him and let him have his own way of working with this. So this is just to make sure that you can, as a demanding for raw material, you can of course demand an EPD. But if he's not able to give you an EPD, you can give him an option to actually supply that and give you that. So the saying is, don't demand anything that you also have a solution for if they can't give it to you. Okay. This should be not a PDF. It should be a system that would I will take this with me since I can't let the system run. Behind here, it is just a picture of the EPD generator, and we produce the EPD that is going to be published. That EPD can you publish either to KEITI, and really happy for this cooperation. But you can also share the EPD. You can share it with people that are having, let's say, a bill of material. This is a BIM system, but behind it, it is a bill of material also. So if you have a production site that you want to have the whole material list directly from your production, you can actually put it in connection with the system through the API, and the material lists are coming directly in here in the beginning of our EPD generator and filling up the material list. In the every insert we are doing with the material list will also collect, because we are putting the system up in a way, will also collect what will happen with this raw material when it comes to end of life. So all that will be automatically filled in for the customer according to the PCR that are being used. This BIM system can also build the EPD, because here you can change something. We can change the numbers, you can change the length, you can change units, and you can send that into the EPD generator, and you are creating actually an EPD on the fly. And we have customers for windows in buildings now that are connecting the whole production system towards the generator, and they will produce a lot of EPDs next year. They say they will have one EPD for each window going out of their factory, and I think they have 650,000 windows producing in 1 year. And we look at that, and we look at the digital product passport, and you can actually attach the real EPD for that exact window. Then you are really coming far in this integration. You can also produce a project-based EPD. Since the whole thing, all of the data is verified, you can produce an EPD for a project. So if you're going into a tender, you can produce a EPD based on your reference EPD that is published, and you can create an EPD for that tender and send it to your potential customer. And you can also make analyzing of EPDs that are published. So you can take an EPD from a competitor, and you can analyze your own EPD and see where is the difference. Why is this better than me? Why did I lose that tender? So you can start innovate in your own production, and you can share it to the next level. And the next level here is also not the animation is not there. It is just a picture to see that this is nothing that we want to do. We are doing it in practice right now. We have a big customer called Prysmian Group. I think it is the world's biggest supplier of electrical cables. They are producing cables, and they are sending this digital for each order to their wholesaler, which are behind here. That wholesaler is actually Elektroscania and part of the Rexel group. They are sending that into Elektroscania. Elektroscania is taking it in, putting in their impact on that EPD. And then they are selling it as a wholesaler to the end customer with all the transport, all the handling, everything has been added, that EPD that is coming from Prysmian Group. And the end customer can get also all the impact he is doing to install that cable. Let's say it is for a big construction for 200 kilometers of wiring for transporting electricity. He can get the complete CO2 emissions on that project. Because the project is the next that also probably have no animation. If you take out this value chain only for project, we will fill up materials from EPDs, transport of the materials, and the construction for installing that. And also the use and reuse phase can also be added. That can be shown like this. We are putting the project system up that are requesting a project-based EPD. And remember, everything here is digitalized. So when they are sending a request for an EPD and then getting a shared EPD back to that project, it is like sharing a document in Word or in Office. So they go in, the owner of the EPD share it, and the material list is filled up. Then you have the transport to the installation place. In a construction for, let's say, a road, this project will always be filled up as long as we go along with the project, and it will always have the greenhouse gas report ready because it will be online. It will always be online. It can be connected to an external verifier. But this is the project. It is not the EPD. You have verified EPDs here. You have the transport. You have the installation. And if the tender owner wants to connect a verifier to it, to check that everything is according to what they were saying, you can do that. And you can also have a project integrated towards a BIM system, so a project will be designed. And of course, the project can be shared. If you have a main contractor and a subcontractor, you can share it together. When it comes to mapping it to eco-design, we see that there is a lot of customers that are asking how to do this. With eco-design, it is a little bit, as far as we see, difficult to see how this is moving, because the product groups are quite different when it comes to how they are going to do this and how they want to calculate. So the rules when it comes to that is a little bit difficult for our customers. But if you see let's say the 8 steps here for eco-design, the material and parts, if you remember the first I showed you with all the modules from the EPD, the materials and design, or materials and parts, will be the A1 on that, the first part with all the materials that is coming in. So you can report on that. Then you have the processing factory. You have the manufacturing of that. It's also part of the EPD, so you can report on that here. So you get the product. You have the distribution also in the EPD itself. And if you produce an EPD on a project, you can have the A4. Now I'm really technical, but the A4 can be added dynamically from an order or from something that it's, you know, the transport equipment and you know the distance. Sales and marketing, there is no one let's say, mapping that I have seen now. The use phase, we have more and more customers that wants to have the use phase in. For instance, we have ventilation systems that wants to have the use phase in the eco-design because the consumption of electricity is lower than the competitors, so they want to map it. That's why they also have it in the EPD. The B6 will be present in the EPD and mapped to here. End of life, C&D on the EPD is also something you can map when it comes to recycling here. The design, it is not, no one is reporting that into the eco-design, but they are using it into the BIM system. So they are using EPDs for a BIM system. So the design phase can also be included, but it is more for calculating. When you're designing something, you can see the CO2 emissions. If you are changing something, you can see the CO2 emissions. The same is with this is the range of requirements that is also included. That we have a lot of them is also, of course, in the EPDs. I will not go into so much details about that. Then you have the digital passport, which are nearly the same. We see that there is a lot of tests that is going out now to how to connect the information we have in the EPD, coming from the manufacturer information that is there, mapping it up, and the same material from the material list, and also some is actually using the A2 here. So if you're saying that since we have efficiency and everything separated, but A2 and A3 is also included in that, so you get into your factory. Circularity, I have not seen anyone that has been talking about when it comes to digital product passport. Performance, it is also taken from the B, but we don't have that many customers that are using that now. And they are definitely not mapping it in here, but they're always requesting for it. So since this is quite new, it is many that are trying to get it to work and trying to map it up. Also, the supply chain it is possible to take from the EPD if all the EPD contains, let's say, EPD also from your supplier, and you have an EPD that you have shared for the next step. And carbon footprint, it is of course possible to calculate. So this is how we are working a little bit with the EU and EI, the consultancy company, worldwide consultancy company, for to get some information how this is going. So the list here is the priority list for the digital product passport. I think you probably know this already if you have been working with it, but it's kind of interesting to see that the car batteries already have the directives. The prototype is in progress. Implementation is starting now. I think actually some already have started it. Then we have textile, which are just behind. Implementation is also starting in 24, but I think they have these regulations here is approved, so it is ready to go. And then you see that the eco design for sustainability products regulations are now for electronics, and we have a lot of electronics producers in the system and produce this documentation. Construction products, I will say that the date is not set yet. When I see the development in Europe on the demand of EPDs and the demand of this kind of documentation, I'm a little bit, let's say, surprised that it came this far down in the priority list from the EU. But I have no answer for why it is like that. And then other products will be announced during 2024. I just wanted to show you also how this is going to be implemented in the system. When you generate a EPD, we will have it according to this ISO standard, and then we will connect to a unique number. It can be GS1. I don't know if you are familiar with the GS1 unique identifier, but if you are not, this is the standard that we create, and we get that number in the EPD. Then we are using the two standard we have already to transform this to information on the digital passport, because the EPD don't contain everything. It is only for the environment part. So we need to connect it to somebody that have the other information needed in the digital passport. So we are using ISO 22057. It is the new communication standard that was released January last year. It is not that many that are using it yet, but all the things in the system are ready to use that, and you can send all the information from an EPD according to 22057. And we hope that everyone will use that. And a lot of systems are using ILCD plus EPD as a standard. But since the LCA is a base for everything we do, and the calculation is according to ISO standards, we will really easily could include other formats if that is necessary to communicate and to use the data from the EPDs into the digital passport. And of course, the data carrier is something that is technology. It is just to be, for us, it doesn't matter what kind of technology you're using here, but it is really interesting to be part of those discussions, because some want them to be, let's say, standing in the server and having all the information there, while others want to use different kind of communication on site. For instance, car industry or for electronic components, they maybe want to have all this digital passport also available in the car and not collected from a server. They want to have it in the car. And then it was the ESG. I think I'm talking about ESG in most of my presentations now, and not so much the EPD. In Europe, the EPD are so, it is like everybody knows how it is and how it's going to work. But there is few that know how much of the EPD, if you have a complete system of EPDs for all of your services and all of your products, how much of these reporting on the ESG you actually have. And some of our biggest customers, they are saying that this is making us available to not use all these consultancy that are hired in to do the top-down calculation of the ESG and the E on that reporting, because they have all the numbers themselves, and we can put it in the ESG reporting. We have decided that we will not go into to create the ESG report, but we will make available all the necessary data from our customers to get it into the report. When it comes to the taxonomy, we have a lot of companies in Norway that, even if we are not part of the EU, we have a trading agreement with the EU, so we have to follow the rules. So if they are applying for something called the green mortgage or the green loans, they are coming in underneath the reporting for EU taxonomy. And on that report, it's the same part. Everything that you can give is coming from EPDs. So all of the things you need to report on the taxonomy report, you can collect from EPDs, if you have a complete set of EPDs for all your product. And we have customers that are doing that. The last is the circular economy. I was having a speech for the Steel Foundation in Norway with all the producer of steel construction. It is just a year ago, and the speaker before me was really proud because the steel industry had 80% of recyclable material. So 98% will be recycled. And that made me think, because all of the energy you're using to produce new products from steel, it is the same, nearly the same as you are using to produce steel from virgin steel. So I was asking them how the recycling process is here, and it's really good if you're recycling 98%, but if you're able to get, let's say, 5% of what you're producing into be reused right away without any changes, then you will really have an effect on the system. And this was the reason why we ended up with developing for the steel industry a report that is not, it is taking the EPD, but we're taking an analyzing report out so you can actually try to simulate if you're a steel producer and you can see how much you have been produced last year, and then you can see if 5% of what I have produced can be reused, and how it will affect on your EPD, because you are able to put reuse instead of recycling on that D section. And it was really a nice feedback I got from some of that was attending to that. They were calling me a couple of weeks after. They had sat down and they was putting in the strategy that they will work together with all the other steel producers, and they will try to get this into a system so they could get standardized way of producing these elements. I'm a little bit sorry that I couldn't get you all the animation. But what is the summary is that we know that documentation is required. I think all of our customers, they are moving the EPD creation from, let's say, a document center, and they are moving it into the product innovation, or let's say the development team, because you need to optimize and to improve. And everybody that had, for instance, the ISO 14001 environmental system that you are approved for, you will have an audit on this ISO certification every year. And if you in that way are showing that you're putting this into action, that you're really improving everything, that you are seeing the numbers you have in the factory, you have the production for each product, and then try to reduce it by changing supplier, by changing transport, by having another assembly, having another production, then you go through that audit right away. The last thing is the most important thing, and it's also why I think it is so good that the deal was mutual agreement is signed between EPD Norway and KEITI. because collaboration, as we see it now, it is the most important thing to try to reach these United Nations goals. I also think it is important because we see that we have these green deals in Europe. And one of the biggest fears, let's say, producers in Europe have, is that when the organizations or producers outside Europe are starting to also create EPDs, create this documentation that are needed, they are afraid of the quality of that documentation. So a cooperation between South Korea and cooperation between KEITI and EPD Norway will actually be also recognized as a good thing to make sure that the quality of this environmental documentation is going to be right. And remember that EU also has established something called green claims. You have the Green Deal, and now they get the green claims. And it is sitting a lot of, they are creating a lot of these rules and also the punishment that if you're doing something wrong, you can send it to the green claim and you can see, you can actually go to court depending on this environmental documentation. And this cooperation will prevent that there will be discussions or it will be, let's say, somebody is saying that the things coming from this area of the world is not trustworthy because they are doing it like this. This is a really good way of working together. So that was my contribution for this seminar. Once again, I'm really happy to have been here. I'm sorry for the animation is not there. I will make sure that the one that wants the PowerPoint presentation with the, let's see, how it's working in the value chain can get that. So thank you so much.